Welcome to Cretoni Entertainment. I'm Chris.
I'm out and Bree.
And I drastically misjudged this model.
Wow, what do you mean?
Episode 39, Woe is Me.
Oh, whoa.
We're going to tackle Madame Woe. Real simple. We're going to start with some Nuln oil here.
Because it is talent in a bottle.
It's very much talent in a bottle. So what we're doing is we're putting some Nuln oil wash right over her hair. Mostly because we want to manipulate the blue.
Right.
So we know we're going to do an everyman paint job on this. We know we're going to make it easy. We know we're going to use a lot of contrast. We're going to use some washes. We're going to use some dry brushing. So we know she's got a lot of blue. Madame Woe has a blue...
Because she was the Blue Ranger enemy.
I mean, that probably had something to do with it. But no, she has blue hair, and she has like a blue... I guess like an armored corset. It's not really like a breastplate, really.
It's a bustier.
Bustier.
It's a metal bustier.
It's a bluestier.
Oh, it's going to be that kind of...
It's absolutely that kind of episode. So what we're doing is we're just taking a brush and we're just kind of relatively carefully applying Nuln oil to all of the blue hair areas, so the hair areas that will be blue. And we're doing this to create a shading difference between this and some of the other blue that goes on, because this is going to manipulate the way the blue actually goes on this miniature. So that's where we're starting. And you know, for those of you who haven't really watched the videos before, we obviously started with our Krylon 2X matte, perfect gray, from Krylon. Obviously, it's Krylon 2X. I've said it 1,000 times. Say it again. You do not have to buy the $20 Games Workshop Gray Seer primer to make contrast paints work. You just don't. It's a marketing tactic. It's not actually a requirement to make the contrast properties work. So we're going to take out our Apothecary white, and we're going to paint every part of Madame Woe's clothing that's supposed to be white.
For the same kind of effect that we were kind of looking for in the other thing?
Well, mostly because we want some depth. We're going to paint over this because we want a clean white. Right. And you can see from the application here that just doing the Apothecary white is going to give us kind of a dirty white. It's going to be more of a grayish white. It's kind of like...
dingy white.
These have been through the laundry a few many times.
Yeah. Madame Woe is not great with bleach.
And that's not what we're going for, but we do want some depth. Now... what the Apothecary white does leave behind is a bit of a gray tint in the recesses, which is fine because a gray tint is going to make a very cold white. You can do a warm white with a cream color, but you do a cold white with a gray. And Madame Woe definitely evokes that cold white mentality. And look how nicely the contrast is going over this basic spray paint. Again, guys, marketing gimmick. Literally, the properties of contrast are not dictated by your primer. They're dictated by the color rather than what's actually in the primer, because what makes the contrast work is actually the liquid base material inside the contrast being of a certain concentration and a certain chemical makeup, not the primer you put on over it. So
for more on this, see last week's Tips and Tech.
Yes, we did a Tips and Tech, kind of talking about this a little bit. We didn't go super deep into the science, but
you can see it.
You absolutely can. And now we're switching to Griff Charger Gray, and we're doing this on all the white areas that are not clothing.
Okay.
It's got more blue in it.
Right.
There's more blue in this.
And her skin was kind of bluish.
Well, her skin was very white.
But it was like, it was white, but it was,
It was a cold white.
Yeah, it was a super cold white.
So were her clothing. But by doing this Griff Charger Gray here that has a tint of blue in it versus the Apothecary white, which has more of a tint of gray, we're going to get two different whites, even though we're going to use white as our highlight.
Yes.
So we're going to get two different effects just on the same color, effectively. So we're going to use our Army Painter Matte White, only because I couldn't find my Vallejo white. The Army Painter Matte White's not terrible, but I've expressed grief with Army Painter paints before. Everyone I've ever dealt with is either way too thick or way too soupy. But for dry brushing, this works fine. So we're taking our Army Painter Matte White and we are dry brushing it over her clothing.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to pick up all the raises and the folds, and it's going to leave the gray in the recesses, and it's going to be lazy. What it's also going to do is add texture.
Yes.
If you get really, really close to the model, you're going to be able to see it's dry brushed. But if you're looking at it from that 3-foot fabulous point...
I love that 3-foot fabulous!
It's going to have minor unevenness in the white, which is going to mimic texture from a distance, which is why we're dry brushing her clothing white.
From a distance, paint is washing. I'm sorry.
Bree will not be on the next episode. She has officially been fired from Cretoni Entertainment.
You throw out one Bette Midler song, man.
So anyway, this is going to create a depth that looks texture. It's going to have a texture like clothing, because clothing is not flat.
Look at how that's already.
Oh, it's great. Like I said, we're super lazy. We're doing an everyman paint job on this, and I dreaded this because I didn't think Madame Woe would suit well to an everyman paint job, but she really does. She's actually a very easy miniature to paint. So especially this dry brush is going to cover most of her details, but you'll notice we're not hitting her hands and her face.
Yes.
We're going to go over them with a traditional highlight, and we're going to do that because we don't want that texture from a distance.
Right.
We want to know
that's her porcelain face.
Yeah, her kabuki mask, or whatever you want to call it.
It was kind of a kabuki mask.
Is that racist for me to say that out loud?
No, because that's actually the form of theater that it's called.
Yeah, but they put it on a monster. But I guess it was Japanese people who put it on a monster.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the rules are with Power Rangers and inadvertent racism.
Well, and she actually was from that statue that was in the Angel Park Grove.
The Angel Park Grove?
The Angel
Welcome
Park
to Angel Park Grove.
Angel Grove Park. Yeah, that
park had everything. That park had everything in it. That was an exceptional park. That park made Central Park in New York look a shame.
Parks everywhere wish they could be that park.
So anyway, we're taking the white again, and we're wetting down the brush, and we're applying it as a highlight over her face and claws
in the kind of extreme areas, leaving stuff so you have that depth.
Absolutely. So, like where her lips meet the rest of her face and where her nose meets the rest of her face, where her eyes meet, we're leaving those the darker color and we're doing the brighter color on top of it because it's going to create, like Bree said, that depth, but it's going to be a smooth depth. You're not going to see the dry brush texture on here.
Right.
Because that's not what we're dealing with.
Nope.
Yeah, you remember more about that episode than I remember about that episode. I remember Madame Woe sent him into some kind of crazy angry realm, and I remember Billy jumped out of it with his power lance and was going all like, "Power lance, yeah, I don't know how to fight, but I know how to fight when I'm morphed." And then there was the geeky girl that was in like 3 or 4 episodes that Billy was trying to chase tail on.
Well, you got to put it that way. Billy is more pure than that. Billy's pure. Leave him alone. And that's actually probably one of the reasons why I remember that episode the most. It was a Billy-centric episode. So it was one that I actually was like, "Yay, Billy! Woo!"
They did a terrible job with Billy pretending he didn't know how to do anything. That was always entertaining, especially in, I don't remember if it was late season 1 or if it was in season 2 where they were letting David Yost wear like more tank tops in his costumes.
And you see
he's
that
like,
he's just
he's like, "No, guys, I'm just the harmless geek," and his arms are freaking huge.
He's like, beautiful definition of like, clearly he's out there doing gymnastics.
Well, he was a very, I think he was actually probably more trained in, and don't quote me on this, I know he was absolutely trained in gymnastics. I thought I had heard somewhere that he was actually more skilled of a gymnast than Amy Jo Johnson was.
Wow.
And she was supposed to be literally the gymnast character.
Yeah.
And you definitely see it, because that guy tears through on some of those.
Whenever they let him flip in or something like that, it was like, boom, boom, boom. You're like, oh, okay.
So it's metal time. We're going to get into, we're gonna bust out the bustier. I know I mispronounced bustier there, but I had to make it kind of fit with bust.
Yep.
So anyway, we're kind of busting out the bustier, the Gary Bustier.
Oh.
And we're using a silver. It should be a Runefang silver that I use, but you can use any light silver that you want. If you use a silver that's too dark, it's not going to pan out for you for the next step. So what we're doing is we're hitting the bustier, we're hitting the gem on her forehead, and we're hitting the ends of her pigtails here. If you actually look at some reference photos of Madame Woe, she has like these metal, I don't know what they're actually called, but metal like ends on the braids that do have more braids sticking out of them, but that doesn't show up on the sculpt here. It kind of just becomes smooth.
They're like the clamps at the end of a braid. Yeah, like a clamp
at the end of that's what I said, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to use our mystery blue. You've all seen our mystery blue before. It's probably...
Mystery blue, turn.
It's probably Talassar blue. Who the hell knows? I don't know. And we're trying to keep not too much of it on our brush, and we're just basically doing her fingers. And then we're screwing them up because we weren't supposed to do the whole finger like we did the pinky there, so I do have to go back and fix that. But basically we're doing, if you look at your own finger and you split your finger into segments where your knuckles are, kind of that lower, thicker segment of your finger is what's going to be blue here. Does that have a name?
I don't know.
I know there's a name for that bone.
I didn't take it out of me.
I know there's a name for that bone, but I don't remember the name for that bone. So I'm going to call it first knuckle bone.
There you go.
So basically just doing that blue. You can see what we're doing blue. It's very obvious. It is super easy. We're just using a contrast paint. We're going about halfway up.
I like that they look like her boxers. Like they're like her workout gloves. Like she's got like workout gloves on.
No, those are her pork shredding claws from the kitchen.
Oh, well, there you go.
Claws to shred pork. Brie and I are both air motioning that because this is good radio. So then we're going to pull out our Citadel contrast Volupous or Volupulous or voluptuous pink. Voluptuous pink. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do the ends of the fingers, but we're also going to deliberately go down about a third onto the blue. And we're doing that on purpose, and we want that to be thick because Madame Woe's hands go from blue to purple to pink on her fingers. Or claws, or whatever you want to call them. Now, we could have done this when the contrast was purely wet. We could have gone for a wet blend with traditional paints. We could have done different wash techniques to make the transitions more smooth. But again, everyman painting. We're just doing this as simply as possible. We're even cutting out the middleman with a purple here by letting the pink, which has a lot of red bias, get onto the blue and create that purple for us.
And let's face it, wet blending is absolutely one of those things that is not for the faint of heart.
Wet blending is incredibly easy, but it's also incredibly time-consuming. Because you, to really do it right, you should have like a flow retardant that will prevent the paint from drying fully, and it helps to have a wet palette nearby, and a two-brush wet blend is the easiest way to do it. It's not hard, it's just a lot of steps, and I'm too lazy to do it. I have a couple minis I wet blended that actually look quite good, but I'm too lazy to do it with the amount of minis I have to paint. So we're going to pull out our Citadel Nuln oil, and we're going to wash the silver areas that we painted earlier, just to add some additional depth when we go ahead and colorize them here momentarily. Colorize is a word now.
Yep.
I think it actually is a word.
It is a word, but it usually refers to like when you went back and had black and white and you decided to add color to it afterwards.
You mean white and black?
No, black and white.
So I had to cut out the end of that thing because I absolutely 100% pulled out the wrong thing. I pulled out my Valhalla Blizzard, and I'm like, this is not contrast medium. So then I pulled out contrast medium and the Talassar blue. And then I thinned the Talassar blue a bit because I didn't want the blue to be overpowering on her braids. And if you noticed on her claws, and if you saw our tips and tech video on contrast paints, the Talassar blue is a very, very strong, overpowering blue.
It is vibrant.
And this is something we didn't really get into in the tips and tech video we put out last week. But if you thin it, and you don't want to thin it with water because that will affect the way the liquid base works in the contrast.
Learn that one the hard way.
If you thin it with your contrast medium, which basically is just the liquid base that makes contrast work, you can actually make a lighter blue out of the same color. And that's all we did there. And the method I used here, guys, I put a little bit of the contrast medium in a well on my paint palette, dip my brush in the contrast medium, then dip my brush in the Talassar blue pot. Yes, I know that puts a little more medium in the pot. It's not enough to make a significant difference to the pot. It does not matter. But the reason I put the contrast medium in its own well is so that when I return the brush to it after each individual dipping of the paint, I'm not getting blue inside my bottle of contrast medium. If any of that makes any sense. I also once bought a bunch of droppers.
Dropper bottles? Yeah.
Turns out contrast medium gums them up after a single use.
Oh, well, that's problematic.
Yeah, it wasn't great, so I wasted a lot of pipettes. They're called pipettes. I didn't remember that, so I wanted to say it. So anyway, that's all we're doing here. All of her hair. We're going to hit the pigtails on both sides. Are they still pigtails?
No, those are braids.
Those are braids. What's the difference? What's a pigtail?
The pigtail is just bound at like the top right near the hair, and then it's a loose.
So that was a ponytail. I thought a pigtail was on the side.
Well, pigtails are like this. Like, actually, pigtails are usually dual.
I see.
Ponytail is single.
People have heard this before. I spent many years working in automotive. To me, a pigtail is a wiring harness device.
Believe me, I had that moment when I was running the hardware store, and the first time somebody said, "Hey, I need a pigtail," and I went, "I'm very confused by what you're saying right now." And then it was like, you mean
the end of a wire here? Okay, hold on.
Okay, you want to change out the cool. Yeah, those are over here.
You know, I made the mistake of using the phrase, and I forget the context, but it was with a resident of one of the homes that I built. I'm in construction now. I made the mistake of saying male and female end when referring to. I was talking about a water line. We were asking about a water line, and I was talking the male and the female, and this person looks surprisingly offended. This is the same person who, by the way, I had to change a sex bolt on their house. So for those of you who don't know what a sex bolt is, we've gone back to our Talassar blue, and we're applying it over the bustier and the metal areas.
Speaking of sex bolt,
you can see the shininess of the blue of the metal coming through the blue, creating an armor, and you can also see, thanks to the Nuln oil, just how much darker this blue is now. So we've used the same blue, but gotten two very distinctive shades of blue as we go back to our sex bolt. For those of you who have never used it, a sex bolt is literally a bolt with a very long sleeve that it screws into, and they go on either ends of a pre-drilled hole, and they're mostly decorative or can hold something in place.
Yes.
It literally is called a sex bolt. It does have another name as well, but the most common name is Sexbolt. And I tell this lady I'm there to replace her Sexbolt, and I thought she was going to lose her mind because she's like, you're going to do what now? And I'm like, well, that was poorly phrased on my part. So now we're going to pull out...
apologize.
We're going to pull out a couple different colors. We got our Citadel Leadbelcher, which is a darker gray. I do not recommend this for the earlier steps, but I want to use it now because Madame Woe has a very dark crown on her head, and I also have my Vallejo electric blue. You'll see I just dabbed the eyes with a fine brush. I just did that a second ago. I think Brie was looking down. I just dabbed the eyes with the electric blue to just kind of add some depth to the eyes, which I've already painted with the Talassar blue. You can leave it with just the Talassar blue if you want. It does not make that much of a difference. And then we're going to take that Leadbelcher.
Just Chris being extra.
Well, it's I got to add one little touch that makes me feel like I'm not phoning it in sometimes. And I'm not saying painting everyman style is phoning it in, especially if you're newer at painting. This is a great way to put good-looking minis on the table. But because I've kind of gone to an everyman painting style, I feel a little bad. I've been painting 20 years, and I don't paint models near as well as I used to because I don't put the time into them anymore. And the reason I don't put the time into them anymore is because I want to paint a lot more minis. And my quantity has gone up. And my quality has gone down a little bit, but not drastically.
No, I will say that you have learned techniques and shortcuts over the years that you are still getting a similar quality to what you used to.
Well, my backlog's about to get a whole lot worse because we just ordered a 3D printer.
Yeah, y'all.
Actually, this is going to air on Monday. The 3D printer should actually be arriving today by the perspective of watching the video. This is the Abaddon black step. You know this step. Really, really watery. Let's get it on the base. Blah, 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 blah.
So, by the way, nobody tried to communicate with Chris as of now.
Because I'm getting a 3D printer and I'm super psyched.
He's just going to be printing whatever he can get his hands on.
I'm going to print the most random. I'm going to print a cup.
I'd be like, this is my cup.
I'm going to print a cup.
There are many other cups.
Is resin food safe?
No, you can get a resin that is food safe, but resin itself is the resins that most things... I actually looked this up after you said you bought it.
I'm going to risk it.
Oh, god damn it.
I'm risk it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, what's the worst thing? So we're doing a little minor touch-up on the fingertips there because we rubbed some of the contrast off because that just happens sometimes. And we're going back to our Nuln oil yet again.
As it is money in a pot.
And you can see the Nuln oil just blurs the miniature. It has nothing to do with me bringing it too close to the camera.
Not at all.
That was the Nuln oil.
That was definitely.
So we're going to go ahead and just wash Madame Woe's crown.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are going to kind of let that dry, obviously. And we're going to go to our Ember Orange, which is the color we chose a while ago to do all of our monster bases. And for those of you who don't recall why we do them this way, we do our monster bases this way because it kind of matches their cards. The monster cards for Heroes of the Grid have kind of an orange background. There's kind of a purplish, maroonish background for bosses, bright green for monsters, yada, yada, yada. So we do all of our monsters with the orange bases to kind of
it was real funny, guys.
Mimic that.
Other day, Chris found a model that he painted way back.
Oh my god, Pudgy Pig. The first model I painted for Heroes of the Grid. And Liberator Gold time.
Okay.
Pull out a Liberator Gold because she does have a splash of gold on her crown. She actually has two. She has the spot that we're doing here, and then there's a kind of more horizontal spot right below this, but I got lazy and didn't paint it on this model, and I don't know why, and it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I dug up my Pudgy Pig. Actually, you've seen it. If you watch the Crotoni Nap Time, I paint the orange base in the first part of that video.
Because you were like,
But yeah. I don't have a Pudgy Pig tutorial coming because I painted Pudgy Pig before I decided to make videos. So I will eventually do a Pudgy Pig tutorial.
Unless somebody wants to send us their Pudgy Pig for Chris to paint.
I'm going to be buying another core set eventually. Because I have big plans for lots of things in it. The only thing I don't really have plans for is the Madame Woe, the Bones, the Nasty Knight, the Pudgy Pig, and the Rita. Everything else I actually have plans for.
What's that? You're going to let me paint those so I can try my hand at them?
No, the Pudgy Pig I have to paint for tutorial, but you can do the rest of them.
Okay, cool.
So anyway, we've done the orange on our base here. Madame Woe is actually complete. This is an easy miniature with some dry brushing techniques, some contrast techniques, some bad photography because I was way too lazy to do a spinning thing at the end. But this wraps up our video here on Madame Woe. Give yours a try. Like and subscribe for more content. Hit that bell button for notifications. For goodness sake, please leave a comment, and we will see you next time on Crotoni Entertainment.
Bye!